इंद्रप्रस्थ ये इंद्रप्रस्थ,
हर युग का ये भारत दर्शन, हर युग का ये भारत दर्शन, हर युग का ये भारत दर्शन।
इंद्रप्रस्थ ये इंद्रप्रस्थ, ये इंद्रप्रस्थ ये इंद्रप्रस्थ, ये इंद्रप्रस्थ ये इंद्रप्रस्थ।
Welcome to Indraprastha, the capital of the world's oldest, largest, and the most vibrant democracy, where eminent scholars and experts talk on the various aspects that have made this country a Mahan Bharat. Indraprastha Talks, an initiative of the Draupadi Dream Trust, Project Nirbhar of RANJEET CHATURVEDI, Team Chrysalis Media, led by Aryan Aditya.
नमस्कार सभी को, गुड मॉर्निंग। मेरी तरफ से बहुत बहुत हार्दिक वेलकम,
वेरी वार्म वेलकम। चंद्रकांत जी नमस्कार, आपका बहुत बहुत स्वागत है।
Today we have a privilege of having with us a person who has not only thought about doing something for Yamuna but really walked the talk to take a personal view of what is these issues. Shri Ranjeet Chaturvedi Pathak from Mathura, who is a businessman, but he has started a project called Project Nirbhar in order to not only make Yamuna Nirbhar, but sort of contribute in the Nirbhar of our Sanskriti and Sabhyata.
He is enthusiast about something which is the lifeline of today's Delhi, today's India, and our Indraprastha. Without Yamuna, we can't even imagine how India is going to be. Without Yamuna, we can't even imagine how Delhi or even Indraprastha is going to be. He's the person who is spearheading this particular cause.
And today, the topic for the discussion is Maa Yamuna, the lifeline of Bharatiya Sabhyata or Sanskriti.
Maa Yamuna, as you see the title, it says, murder of a mother by humanity. Now, why is it a murder? We will go through these slides and then realize what we as humans have done to this divine goddess, this divine mother of ours. We all know about Yamuna, that it starts from the Yamunotri glacier in Uttarakhand, and it reaches what we call Prayagraj, the holy Sangam in Uttar Pradesh. What we do not know, however, is what is Yamuna's family? What is Yamuna all about? Maa Yamuna is also known the daughter of the sun god Surya. Her brothers are Manu, the first man, the twin Ashwins, the divine doctors, the planet Saturn, Shani, and Yama, who we know as the god of death. She is also called Suryatanya, Suryaja, and Ravi Nandini. And because of her association to her twin brother Yama, who is the lord of death, and also known as Kala, Mahakala, we get a name Kalindi. And also because she comes to earth through the Kalandagiri mountains, she's also known as Kalindi. We can see that the origin, the 1,380 kilometers of the Yamuna route, starts from the Yamunotri glaciers high up in the Himalayas, very close to Gangotri, and also the source of the Saraswati, ancient Saraswati. And as we see that there are main 22 important river tributaries to Yamuna, as we see on the right table. And all of these rivers coming together with Yamuna make Yamuna the largest tributary in the country. She becomes a tributary to the Ganga. The important part from this slide, which I would like to talk about, is the challenges which the Yamuna belt is facing. So if you will see on the table, on the right side that the Yamuna is divided into 4 segments: the Himalayan, the upper, the middle, and the lower. And each one of these sections has a different sort of a problem and a threat to the river. So the upper Himalayan region, which is roughly 200 kilometers starting from Yamunotri up to Hatnikund, you have various hydropower projects, dams, barrages, mining, dumping of solid waste. And then when you come further down, that is from Hatnikund up to the Wazirabad barrage in Delhi, there is illegal sand mining. There is absolutely no water. There's a lot of industrial pollution. And then the part which we see as the middle part, this is the part between Delhi and where the Yamuna meets Chambal, is the part where the Yamuna is actually dead. These are some of the barrages that you will see. That the first one is in Dakpatar near Dehradun, and then the Hatnikund, and then you have the ITO, the Wazirabad, the Okla, and there's a barrage in Mathura also known as the Gokul Barrage. Now, Yamuna water has several uses, and we, like every other river, from drinking to hydropower to irrigation to industries to potable water, there are a lot of things that the water is used for. But the pollution that is causing the river to die starts really in Delhi, because 58% of the waste generated in Delhi goes into the river untreated. The Panipat stretch to the Agra stretch, as you see, is the stretch where the river has been declared dead because there is undetectable levels of oxygen. And according to the latest reports, this belt between the 22-kilometer Delhi stretch, which is the capital of the country, which pollutes the Yamuna 70%. This is the latest River Yamuna analysis report. If you can see the date of sampling is 1/7/2021 and the date of reporting is 11/8. So this is the latest report. If you will see the fecal coliform levels, the desirable level is 500 and the maximum level is 2500. And the moment we enter Wazirabad, if you see serial number 2, and if you go down, the river Yamuna, after Tughlakabad drains, you can see it is 47 into 1000, 47,000. So against 2500, it is 47,000. And in some cases, it is 140,000 if you see at Shadra. So this is the level of pollution and the waste that is flowing in the Yamuna. So only 2% of the Yamuna's length is through Delhi, our capital city. And there are these number of drains, the main one being the Najafgarh drain, which is in itself is a 57-kilometer drain. And this 2% accounts for 70% of the total pollution in Yamuna. This 2% of the national capital of India. And as you can see on the highlighted part in yellow, that the biochemical oxygen demand should not be more than 5 mg per liter. And what we see that it is at 500 against 1.1 billion coliform bacteria per 100 milliliters. So the main contributors of pollution to Yamuna is untreated sewage, industrial waste, and municipal and construction waste, which goes into the drains and ultimately flows into the rivers. Now, can you imagine that the the area on the river embankments and the floodplains, which goes into cultivation and agriculture, the kind of produce that we are producing from that area, which goes into the markets and then ultimately on our plates, is a major reason for deformities and health emergencies that we are facing today. And if you see just on the plastic side of it, the plastic pollution, that despite the 2017 ban on single-use plastic, Delhi produces 251,000 tons of plastic each year, out of which 50% of which is single-use. And that's roughly 63,000 elephants worth of plastic. And this all goes into the Yamuna. There have been major decisions by the Supreme Court and the NGT. You can see that the Delhi Jal Board in 2016 formulated an interceptor sewers scheme. Then the NGT in 2012 took a decision, and according to which a very important decision was taken of applying a polluter pays principle, unfortunately, which has not taken off yet. On 25th July in 2018, there was a board of multiple stakeholders who deal with the river Yamuna and the pollution related to it was constituted. And even a 2-member monitoring committee was comprised on 26th July 2019 to look after the various aspects of pollution and damage which is being done to the Yamuna belt. Well, there is no end to the level of responsibilities that the pollution control boards have. But how much of this is actually happening on ground is a question that we must ask. Delhi Jal Board has a very important role to play, especially when we see that there is absolutely no sewerage facility in almost 1,800 unauthorized colonies around the riverbank. Well, when we speak about the responsibilities of industries departments and the state industrial development departments, not only in Delhi, but throughout the different states through which Yamuna flows, the target set of achieving a zero liquid discharge should be made mandatory and should be followed up in a way that no industrial pollution should enter the Yamuna. The Upper Yamuna River Board, which was constituted by the NGT and the Supreme Court, should make sure that the river Yamuna, after Hathni Kund Barrage, at least carries some water downstream. Because as we can see, there is no water in river Yamuna after the Hathni Kund Barrage for most parts of the year. One very important responsibility remaining with the Delhi Development Authority is that it should reclaim DDA land on the various floodplains, which is being encroached. And similarly, all irrigation departments of all the states through which Yamuna flows should make sure that there is no encroachment. We've heard of some serious encroachments happening in Mathura recently on the ghats, and now the government has taken action on that. But this is just one of the cases. The municipal corporations have their own set of responsibilities. They have to ensure that all the rules and regulations are enforced properly and as desired. The most important part, as we know, is that nothing can happen without public awareness. So as you see, there is an urgent need to revive an interest in the river Yamuna and build public awareness about its importance, as well as its cultural history. I think that is the reason why we are holding this session today. There should be some methods to take this awareness to our children through educational institutions and to help them understand what is the importance of River Yamuna. As we see the political part of the story, these are all recent 2021 statements which were made by the parties, the political parties in the current dispensation, making tall claims, and each state blaming on the other state. And despite the highest judicial authority in this country taking note, we still don't see enough action on the ground. Earlier this year in January, the Supreme Court had taken even a suo motu decision related to the pollution in the river. And as we can see that if the oxygen levels in any living thing are found to be undetectable, it clearly means that it is not a living thing anymore. So on the 22 points in Delhi where the water was tested, it was found that there was absolutely no oxygen in Yamuna, which means that it is not alive. Hence, the cover of this presentation was Murder of a River by Humanity. And why I say it is because of humanity is because when we humans went inside during the lockdown, you can see the beautiful face of Maa Yamuna. And then you can see how and what has happened to that same river after we all have ventured out. So we took a Kalash Padayatra. We started from Yamunotri Dham. You can see the Yamunotri temple on the left, to Punyatirth Vishram Ghat in Mathura, which you can see on the right. So the significance of these 2 points is that on the left is the birth of Yamuna. She comes here as a child. And to the right, where you see the Vishram Ghat in Mathura, that's where she becomes Maa Yamuna. That's where she becomes a mother. And it is very sad that people of Mathura are forced to see a dead mother every day. I thank Samarth Chaturvedi for preparing this short presentation, and who's part of the team Nirbhar. Now I would want to take you to something startling. Some of it has to be read by me because there's so much information that has been collated. But I hope to convince each and every listener over here that after you hear this out, you will be convinced that we, for all of you sitting close to the river Yamuna right now, are sitting at the cradle of the modern civilization, starting from the United States and ending eastwards to India. So we go into history. Yamuna flowed through the Kuru territories, as described primarily in the Mahabharata and also in the Vedas. Apart from the rivers, the cities, towns, villages, holy spots known as the Tirth Sthans, forests and lakes mentioned in the Mahabharata, falling in this territory, they were also known as Kuru Rashtra with 2 divisions. One, the Eastern Kuru, and to the western Kuru known as Kuru Jangala. And this was separated by the Yamuna River. The Indo-European migrations from the densely populated Saraswati Yamuna region can be proven. Based on the studies of Avestan and the Greek text, the Daityas and the Danavas who coexisted with the Adityas in the Saraswati Yamuna region are identified respectively with the Avestans described in the Avestan text like the Vendidad, and the Greek Danas described in the Iliad and the Odyssey. The Adityas, Elia, Puru, Bharata, Kuru lineage, since the Saraswati Yamuna region is described as the territory of the Adityas like Indra and Varuna. Manu was also known as Yama and Yima, Y-I-M-A. The matriarch come goddess Ilia, known as Aditi for us, the originator of the Elia lineage, the kings in the line of Puru, Bharata, and Kuru. The region was inhabited by a mixed ancestry consisting of the Nagas, the Purus, and the Yadus, with Adityas, Elias, and Nagas being ancestral to both Yadus and Purus. So what is the significance of Yamuna in the Kuru territory? The Ganga, Yamuna, Advati, and Saraswati are the four major rivers in the Kuru territory. The Mahabharata also mentions about these rivers and two other rivers called Oghavati and Hiranyavati, which are considered as the tributaries of Saraswati flowing through Kurukshetra. Among all these rivers, river Yamuna is central river to the Kuru Rashtra. Now, when I say Yamuna is the central river of the Kuru Rashtra, we understand that the Kuru territories were divided into two halves. So the eastern Kuru had a capital called Hastinapur, and the western Kuru had a capital called Indraprastha. So places like Tilaprastha, Indraprastha, Swarnaprastha, also known as Sonipat, Bhagaprastha, Bhagpat, and Panaprastha, Panipat, were all situated on either banks of the Yamuna. Tilaprastha was etymologically the place of cultivation of til. So til ki laddu, til ka tel is extracted. Indraprastha was the major city on the banks of Yamuna and the capital of the Pandavas. The city was probably named after the former ruler of the place, the Vedic Indra himself. Swarnaprastha was the marketplace of jewelers and gold workers. Bhagaprastha was the local of the main deity, Bhaga, one of the Adityas, and later merged with the cult of Shiva, worshipping using Shiva Linga, and it was worshipped during the time of the Pandavas. Panaprastha was the marketplace of the Panis, the Vanis, the Vaniks, the traders. And Panis are also mentioned in the Vedas as a tribe of traders, much like the Yadavas in the Dwarka region. So the Kuru territory, as per the Mahabharata, defines Kuru land between Ganga in the east, Saraswati in the west, Himalayas in the north, Kamyakya and Dvaitya forest lying to the west beyond Saraswati, and territories of Panchala lying to the east, Shursena to its southeast, Matsya to its south, and Salva to its southwest. It was divided, all of this was divided by the Yamuna, with Kuru Jangala in the west and Kuru proper in the east of Yamuna. The Kuru Jangala contained Kurukshetra in the north and Khandava in the south, which brings us to Kurukshetra. So we all know about Balrama's travel along the Saraswati leading to the source of Yamuna. So there were almost 35 places which were visited by Lord Balrama. And the most crucial ones were lying on the banks of River Yamuna, whereas almost all of them were lying between the River Saraswati and River Yamuna. Some of them, some of the places, like Yayata, was the 17th place where Lord Balrama visited. Yayata is a place where Yayati, the son of Nahusha, lived, and he did penance there. The production of milk and clarified butter was the occupation of the Yadavas, which started here. Names like Yayata here affirms that this was indeed the place where Yayati and other Ailya ancestors of the Kurus lived. Another place was Vashishta Pravaha. I'm sorry for my pronunciation of Sanskrit words because I'm not a scholar in Sanskrit. But this was a place where Vashishta lived on the eastern bank at Sthanu. Vishwamitra lived on the opposite bank. And this is the place where we witnessed the competition between Vashishta and Vishwamitra, which is recorded in the Vedas and the Mahabharatas. It is here that the Devas installed Skanda as their commander-in-chief, indicating this as the battlefield of the Adityas, Daityas, and the Danavas. There are various tirthas of Aruna, Soma, Tejasya, and Agni. The Soma Tirtha, which Balrama visited, is a place where the battle of Devas versus Daityas, Danavas versus Rakshasas took place. And also the battle of Skanda versus Taraka took place. Tejasya Tirtha is the place where Varuna was installed as the king of the waters by Devas. The Mahabharata describes the whole of Kurukshetra as Brahmavarat and considered it as the northern sacrificial altar of Brahma and also of the Devas. Another name given to the land of Kurukshetra is Ilyaspada. Another area was called Kauvera, which was visited by Lord Balrama and situated close to the banks of River Yamuna. Vilya, also known as Kauvera, the king of Yakshas, had done penance here. The name Vilya indicates that he lived in the territory of Ila, also known as Ilaspada, also known as Kurukshetra. Let's not forget, Ila is also Aditi as per our Vedic culture. It was the same place where the Maruts had installed Kauvera as their king. There is another place called Vadara Pashana, where Sruvavati, the daughter of Rishi Bharadwaja, lived here as a brahmacharini and became the spouse of Lord Indra. Here it is mentioned that a 12-year-long drought happened here, which is connected to the Saptarshis and Arundhati, which is known as the constellation shift, which happened at that time. There are various tirthas related to Indra, Rama. When I say Rama, I talk about Parshurama. Varuna, also known as Yamuna, because Varuna is the lord of the oceans of the water, so also known as Yamuna, and various Adityas. Aditya, when we speak here about Aditya, we speak about the sun god. If we talk about the Varuna Tirtha, also called as the Yamuna Tirtha. So Lord Varuna had done the Rajasuya Yagya. Varuna battled against Manavas, Devas, Gandharvas, and Rakshasas here. And a battle between the Devas and Danavas also occurred here at the Varuna Tirtha. At the Aditya Tirtha, Lord Aditya performed various penances. And just like Indra and Vishnu, Vishwadevas, Maruts, Gandharvas, Apsaras, Yakshas, Rakshasas, and Pisachas, all of them came to this Tirth to perform penance. In fact, sage Vyasa and Devalya attained yogic powers by doing yoga at this Tirtha. There also existed an asylum of sage Saraswati, which we know as Saraswat Brahmins bhi hote hain. So sage Saraswati taught the lost Vedas during the 12-year drought period, which I mentioned about earlier. Lord Dadichi and Apsara, Alambusa are also living, used to live at this Tirtha. And their son, on whose name this Tirtha was named, Sravasta. And it was here that their son Sravasta narrated the story of Rishi Dhadicha giving his bones to Indra, Lord Indra, to make the Vajra. There also existed the asylum of Mitra Varuna at Yamuna. And Indra, Agni, Aryaman, a lot of Devtas came here because all of them fought with Varuna earlier. So they all came to the banks of Yamuna to make peace with Lord Varuna. So with this, you can understand how everything that we know of today, of our culture, of our religion, from the Vedas, we often refer to the Mahabharata, we often refer to all of these kind of texts to understand where we are coming from. It all originated in what we call the Yamuna Basin regions. And how are we connected to the Yamuna? So let's focus on the Indo-European dispersal from the Yamuna Saraswati region. The 5 tribes mentioned in the Vedas, the Yadu, Turvasa, Dhrayu, Anu, and Puru, were ancestral to various Indo-European tribes who originated in India and then spread from here to the rest of Central Asia and Europe, speaking various Indo-European languages. This is one of the reasons why we say that the Sanskrit is the mother of all languages. The origin of Indo-European language precisely in the Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati region, also known as the Kuru territory, also the modern eastern Uttar Pradesh and Haryana. The Purus who stayed back in this ancestral territory as the Vedic period, in the Vedic period were also known as the Indo-Aryans. The Yadus who gradually pushed to the south, they spread to the western shores of India, including Dwarka. And some Turvasas followed the Yadus and the others migrated westwards. The Anus migrated to the west of Saraswati and Sindhu and finally settled in Iran as Indo-Iranians. The Dhrayus migrated further away and are the ancestors of the Indo-Europeans. The Turvasas who migrated along with the Yadus to the south were the Bhoja Yadavas. The Anus, also known as Anavas, diversified in the western migration as Daityas and Danavas. The Daityas stayed back in the west of Saraswati and Sindhu, and finally in Iran. They gave rise to the Avestan literature and later became the Zoroastrians. The Danavas later migrated from Iran to Armenia, to Greece, to become the Danan tribe, mentioned in the Iliad and the Odyssey, and finally reached Ireland as Irishmen. The strong linguistic relationship between the Iranian, the Armenian, and the Greek mentioned in Talageri's work can be explained in this way. Within the Kuru territory itself, the western part, that is the region between the Yamuna and Saraswati, later known to us as the land of Kurukshetra and Kuru Jangala, was the most happening place during the period of the Adityas and in the Vedic period when the Vedas were composed. Ganga, Ma Ganga, as a river, was discovered much later, starting with a king named Hasti, who established Hastinapur on the banks of Ganga, and later Santanu, who married Ganga and had a son, a powerful son called Bhishma, also known as the Gangaputra, who plays a very important role in the Mahabharata. Moving on, the Purus, that is the descendants of the Adityas, who inherited the Aditya territories and became worshippers of their Adityas or their ancestral heroes like Indra and others. And these were the people who were hailed in the Vedas and also still today are worshipped in many cultures and religions across the world, like in Greece, for instance. So the Purus, who were the descendants of the Adityas, had their ancient capital in the Kurukshetra region between Yamuna and Saraswati. And some of the locations which are identified are Bhir Rana, Rakhi Gadi, and also the location of Indraprastha itself, much before the Pandavas built their city here. In the Avestan texts, Indra or Indra worshippers or Daivas are mentioned as the primary enemy, along with the Druj, Dharyus. Vedic pantheon of gods and goddesses is partially shared, such as Yima, also known as Yama to us, Vivanghat, also known as Vivasvat, Mitra, Aryaman, also known as Aryaman to us. Avestan books, Vendidad, is an abbreviation of Vedevdat, which also means a book against the Devas. The position of Manu in the Vedas is replaced by Yima, our Vedic Yama, in the Avestan texts. Hence, when the Sanskrit texts talk about Manu's flood, Avestan text talks about Yima's flood, which is Yama's flood. So if you see the correlation that Yima, known as Yama, and for us Manu and Manu's flood, but both Yama, the position of Manu in the Vedas is replaced by Yima, our Vedic Yama, in the Avestan texts. Hence, when the Sanskrit texts talk about Manu's flood, Avestan text talks about Yima's flood, which is Yama's flood. So if you see the correlation that Yima, known as Yama, and for us Manu and Manu's flood, but both Yama and Manu, Avestan Manu, were both the sons of Surya, and both were brothers to Yamuna. So either way, we say that Yama was the first mortal, was the first person to die. The Avestan text further, like the Vendidad, described Ahura Mazda as the god, and this god Ahura Mazda is mentioned as murdering the worshippers of Devas, which brings us to this conclusion that it was the opposite, that we who were left here and the Purus who moved further, so the Purus stayed here, and the Turvasas who had moved further west, we had a difference in belief, but we all had the characters in common. So, as we see that the pre-Ailyas or the Adityas and the kings from Pururavas to Samavaras all lived in the region containing the region which is part of the Yamuna Saraswati belt. And what we call Bharat today comes from the word Bharatas, that is someone in the line of Swamvarna, and kings like Pradipa, Santanu, Vichitravira, Pandu, Arjun, Abhimanyu, Parikshit, Janmajaya, Satanika, Ashwamedhata, who developed Indraprastha and Hastinapur came much, much, much. So with this, we give you a view that from language to culture, to religion, to our way of living, our ancient beliefs, the gods that we worship, everything that we know today of comes from the Yamuna basin. But the truth is that there was life, there were gods, there were deities, there was the Vedic period, which all was much, much before the Mahabharata period. And Yamuna is the one and is the only one who still exists from that period until now. But the one who we have damaged the most, the Devi who has seen it all and now is seeing something which I think she wouldn't have predicted herself, is that this great Bharat region, this region from where religion has flourished, this is the region where Manu, where Yima, they sustained life after the great flood, after the pralay. And it is today a capital, it flows through the capital of a great nation, which has the most ancient history. And unfortunately, it is called the most polluted river in the world. And unfortunately, it dies in the same very place. Thank you.
Thank you very much for this very, very detailed and a very structured sort of connection of Yamuna being the source of our civilization and culture, whether it's like the most ancient, prehistoric, historic, as well as modern times. And here is the place where she is most ill-treated, most disrespected, and actually literally dirt is thrown at her. So this is something that is a very great matter of concern.
हर युग का ये भारत दर्शन, हर युग का ये भारत दर्शन, हर युग का ये भारत दर्शन।
Welcome to Indraprastha, the capital of the world's oldest, largest, and the most vibrant democracy, where eminent scholars and experts talk on the various aspects that have made this country a Mahan Bharat. Indraprastha Talks, an initiative of the Draupadi Dream Trust, Project Nirbhar of RANJEET CHATURVEDI, Team Chrysalis Media, led by Aryan Aditya.